And now, ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome for ASEA founder, Tyler Norton.
I'm excited to share a final message with you tonight before we break about what you would expect from me, which is what I refer to as the ASEA ethos. This is dear to my heart, and literally from the very beginning days of even the idea of this company, when I had a chance to visit with my dad, I would share feelings and commitments that I had to how you could build an organization that could differentiate itself on the concept of an ethos. I was grateful to hear Alan reference this because I'm actually starting my entire presentation with the notion that we're a corporation. And I love the study of words. I love where they come from. And if you see the word corporation, you have to ask yourself, well, what does this word really mean? It comes from a derivative that if you drop this out, you can start to get a feel for it. You see words that the military corps, right, C-O-R-P-S, you see words like a corpse, you see words like corporeal. And what a corporation really represents, as Alan said a minute ago, is this concept of a body. It's interesting to also note that an organization is largely made up of organs. So this notion of us being a corporation or being a group of people together suggests that we are one body. And here's a question for you. So if a corporation is a body, is it possible then that it can have a soul? Right? And I think this is an important concept. If we refer to ourselves as a corporation, as an organization, then I think we should ask ourselves, what is the soul? And let's define soul. Soul is the spiritual part of a person that's believed to give life to the body. Now, this is not my definition. This definition comes directly from dictionary.com. The spiritual part of a person that's believed to give life to the body. Now, what about this word then? What's the corporate soul? How would you identify a corporate soul? Well, in my opinion, it's the spiritual part of an organization that's believed to give life to the corporation. And for me, that is what I mean when I say ethos. Ethos is defined as the fundamental and distinguishing character or spirit of a culture. To me, the ethos is the corporate soul. Ethos comes from a Greek derivative that talks about a habitual character, same derivative as the word ethics. So when you think of the ASEA ethos, and by the way, how many of you, by show of hands, have never been to an annual convention at ASEA? Hold them up high for me for just a minute. Probably the better part of half in this room. And what that suggests to me is while we might think, the founding diamonds or people that have been here for several years, we may maintain that, oh, people know what our ethos is, but I'm confident that many of you don't. And you might hear of it, you might even sense it, you might even feel it. But what I'd like to do tonight is to share it with you in a way that's kind of a summary of what we've talked about from this stage. My father summarized for all of you his approach to these convention meetings by sharing his view strategically of the company. And from the very beginning, I went back to the 2010 Breakthrough Convention. I have been sharing and speaking about this almost invariably. With the permission of those that have heard much of this already, I'd like to share with those of you that are here for the first time what it means for us when we say the ethos of the company. Do I have the permission of those that have already heard this? So let's look at it this way. What I did is went back and took some images to kind of give you a visual sense of what I'm talking about. Now, for those that haven't seen this, I'm going to go through each one of these quickly tonight. We're running short on time, but I just want to touch on these for you to give you a sense when we say, what are the fundamental values? What is the distinguishing and differentiating spirit or soul of this organization? And please don't look at these things as though this is us talking in some sort of corporate voice. This is what we want you to ponder and consider incorporating into your business, in the way you interact with people, in the way you carry yourself. The first of these is a formula we call EPC. The second was something I shared at the 2010 event called Flow. The third is a philosophy that we've shared at all of our bronze base camps almost since the beginning, tied to a wonderful book called The Anatomy of Peace. The fourth is this notion of believe, belong, become, which is the general maxim or statement of our ethos, but not necessarily the entire body of it. The fifth is going to be a presentation I made a couple of years ago about the talents, elements, and the nature of all of us intersecting with moments. I'd like to share a little bit about a children's story that means a lot to us here that I've shared from this stage called The Three Questions. I want to revisit the notion of Ubuntu. And then with your blessing, I'm going to introduce one more thing tonight into the ethos that I think you'll appreciate, that I would like for all of us to try to live towards as we move forward. So I'd like to take each one of these in isolation and walk you through them. This is a formula called EPC, and Chuck mentioned that we'd worked together for a long time. EPC is a formula that's really comparing and contrasting important principles that might give you a reference point for how we try to think about decisions and carrying the business. And we put it in a little graph, a little formula. So we measure three things on the bottom. I don't know if this pointer will work. Let's see. This is ego and economics on the left side, which is why it's referred to as E squared. P in the middle is principles, and C on the far right is capacity. And if I were to measure across both axes your motivation and your commitment to ego and economic drives, to principles, and to building your own capacity, and if I were to say that, for example, I am on a scale from 1 to 9, motivated and committed by ego and economics at a level 5. You might say, well, is that good or bad? And I would say, I don't know until I have a better sense of your commitment to principles. You see, we believe that ego and economic drives should be less than your commitment and motivation to live and abide with principles. What does that mean? That means that you're willing to make decisions that might not necessarily promote your own economic outcomes or your own ego, but will actually create the conditions where principles prevail. So this rule is keep E under P, right? Keep ego and economic drives in check and make principles the primary motivation and commitment. Now, if that's the case, let's look at an alternate. What does someone that's an 82 in this ratio look like? Ever seen an 82 before? Does this industry promote 82s? Do you think so? So there's lots of businesses. I was in the financial industry. If you were an 82, you were probably getting paid well and getting recognized well. This meant someone that was motivated and committed on the left side, highly committed to ego, highly committed to money, and frankly, when it came to time to say, are you doing it the right way? Are you treating people the right way? That wasn't really part of the equation. And so that would be an 82. Be careful, make sure that you keep E under P. We call this motive management. Manage your motives as part of this ethos. We try to do it at the corporate office. We're not perfect. And you try to do it in the field. I will tell you, everybody has an E over P moment every day. If you're standing in line to get a picture with Virtus and somebody's in front of you going slow, you might be having an E over P moment. You might be having a moment that says, hey, would you hurry up so I can get a picture with Virtus? I saw a few E over P faces last night waiting to take pictures with him. If I'm driving down the street on the freeway and I want to get around somebody, in that moment, I might be having an E over P moment, like I deserve to be in front of you. I should be in front of you. Those are the classic examples. I always say E over P is like blood pressure. It can spike. It can move very quickly. So learn to manage your motives. Let's talk about how this looks adding other elements to it. What about capacity? If I took a 16-ounce bottle of water that was half full and said it was 16 ounces total, but it was only half full, what would the capacity be? Would that change? The capacity is the same. So think of capacity as actual or potential ability. This is your ability or your potential ability. So the idea in this formula is this. It's try to be high in principles, high in building capacity, but manage principles and ego and economic drives so that you don't get out of whack. Make sense? Are you awake? Okay, just making sure. Welcome back. Now, what about this score? What about a highly capable person, really good at what they can do, that's highly driven by ego and economics, but is willing to compromise their principles? Ever seen someone like this? Almost every time I make this presentation, and I've made it all around the world, somebody says, politician. This is a politician. They're smart, they're capable, but they're willing to compromise their principles in the name of ego and economic drives. This is a very dangerous score. This is a very dangerous profile. And when you see this, I would tell you to run. Now, let's look at this from the standpoint of a target score. So we have a maxim that says keep E under P and drive up C. Keep your ego and economic in check, drive up your commitment to principles, right? And drive up your capacity. I should say that you notice that the highest score you can get here is a 9. Any guesses why we don't give a 9 in principles and capacity? Because if you're like me, you're always learning new principles every day, and there's always more you can do and become. So bear in mind that the idea here is focus on principles and look for this target score. This is certainly the score I like to think of. I don't want to be a 1 in ego and economics. I certainly want to make a living. I want my family to be blessed by my efforts, but I don't want it to become so consuming that I'm willing to be dishonest or I'm willing to violate principles to do that. Make sense? These quick summaries I'm just going to share. So manage motives, never let ego or economic motivations trump commitment, and then build your capacity. My dad's quote, you are valued in life largely or in good measure to the degree that you make yourself valuable. So build yourself, work on yourself. Okay, what about this concept of flow? Anybody heard of flow before? Dr. Chick sent me, hi, not a lot of you. This is cool then. If you're awake, I'm going to show you something really cool here. Okay. There's a doctor at the University of Chicago, he's actually originally from the Czech Republic, who came up with this concept. He's an atheist, I should say, to start, so he doesn't think about this through the lens of faith. But his original desire was to know, why are some people having a better day than others? Why are some people seeming to have a better experience than others? Why are some happier or in a better condition? And what he started to do is he gave people pagers throughout the day, and back in the day, he would put pagers on their hip, and he would ping them and ask them a series of questions that they would answer with numbers. They could actually answer where they were. It was, what are you doing right now? Where are you? How do you feel on a scale from 1 to 10? Are you engaged, challenged, etc.? And he saw this very interesting relationship. What he found was that when people looked at the relationship between a challenge and a skill that they might have had, if the skill level was high enough and the challenge level was starting to get commensurate or equal to that skill, then in fact, he put them in this channel of flow. And he said, people get in this place called flow. And he used the term flow because when he interviewed people, they would all say, I don't know, time gets distorted. I just love what I'm doing. I don't even really care. I found myself, I didn't eat for like 9 hours. And time gets, he did it with artists, he did it with business people, he did it with athletes, and they all use this word, I just feel like I'm in this state of flow. So he said, you know what? I've decided that flow is where challenges and skill equal each other. It's when someone is really engaged. And this is counter to the Corona commercials you see where people are sitting on a beach, right? How many people do you know that have retired, like my dad, and decided a little bit into retirement that I'm not really in flow, like I'm not really excited and engaged anymore. I feel out of flow. So this concept teaches this model of flow. Now what happens if the skill level drops, but the challenge drops, but the skills stay the same as you're out of flow? He referred to this as a control position. You may choose, if you're making enough money, to drop out of flow and just kind of enjoy control, right? Everything's good, we're on cruise control. And what you'd have to do to get into flow is you'd have to increase a challenge. You'd have to awaken yourself and say, you know what? I'm probably pushing the clutch in a little bit and I need to move forward. On the other hand, if the skill levels are low or lower and the challenge climbs, you may find yourself in a position of what they call arousal, a very pure type of arousal for those of you that might be thinking a different form. This type of arousal says it's time to wake up. It's time to do something more. And how do you push yourself back into flow? You increase your skill set. So this becomes kind of an expanding event horizon. You're constantly in flow. You introduce, if you start dropping out of flow, it might be because you're not challenging yourself enough. Or if you're out of flow, you might be needing to work on skill sets to push yourself forward so you can get better. And the essence of this whole model is that he could map the whole human experience. He said if the challenge drops really low, you might be in a relaxation phase. If it drops even further back, the skill sets and challenge, you might be bored. What about apathy? How many have a teenager that just sits around and they might not have the challenges or skill sets and they're low? And then on the other side, you might have a challenge that's a little higher and a skill set that's low. You might be in worry and then ultimately anxiety. Now, why does this matter? What's the summary of this? What I want you to realize is that happiness and self-actualization and becoming most likely occur when you're challenging yourself and you're developing new skills. If you're unhappy in life, if you're not satisfied with life, you can look to a whole bunch of externalities, or you can audit yourself and say, am I pushing myself? Am I finding new challenges, and am I developing new skills? By the way, when you think of believe, belong, become, you can see why flow matters, right? This is where becoming is. New challenges, new skills. Make sense? You with me? Stay with me, Goose. What movie? Top Gun. Thank you. Welcome back. Okay, let's look at the anatomy of peace for just a minute. I'm not going to go deep into this, but this is a simple notion, and this is the notion of the anatomy of peace. People respond most to the way we feel about them, not what we say or do. Now think about this for a minute. You got to stay with me. People respond most to the way we feel about them, not what we say or do. Well, that's an interesting question. What that says is I could say I love you to my wife, but if my heart isn't feeling really soft in the given moment, will she respond to me saying I love you, or will she respond to how my heart is feeling? And this whole book's philosophy says that if your heart is not right towards other people, largely because you're seeing them maybe in the moment as an object instead of a human being, that heart will actually speak more than your behavior and more than what you say. Now, what are the implications for an ASEA associate on this philosophy? If it's true, let's say that it's true. Go with me on the assumption. What that means is how you view the person you're coming up to talk to will actually be more important than even what you say. And I appreciate what was taught today about these words that you can use. I'm not saying that's not important, but I would submit to you 50 times more important than the words you say is how you're viewing the person, how you're seeing that person. There's a form of violence that occurs when they're seen as a way to get on the stage for Club Virtus or as a way to meet a rank. And you don't have to hit them to create that form of violence. You just simply have to say, I need one more enrollment to make Cancun, and you happen to be it. And when you do that, you're probably reducing that person to an object instead of to a person. On the other hand, if you'll focus and work on trying to view people as people, acknowledge and to completely accept their humanity, their hopes, their fears, their aspirations, in that moment, because you're seeing other people truly, you are true. And if authenticity is the watchword, and I think it is in all business, if you're authentic and genuine, people will listen and people will respond. So if you've got a problem in a relationship, if you're struggling even in your business, in your home, I would tell you this is an incredibly powerful concept, and I would challenge you to read it. If you come to Bronze Base Camp, we go deep on this concept. Summary being this: see and treat others as people, not as objects. Your influence increases when you recognize and respond to the humanity of the others around you. When you see them truly, you are true. Okay? Now, why does this matter? Let's go back. What did I start with? I started with the notion that a corporation is a body. And then I asked a simple question: can a corporate body have a soul? Can it have a spirit? Now, can you imagine if I just took these three pieces, if we were all trying to live this way? Can you see what happens? Even in our worst moment, even when we're crossing swords with somebody that we're disagreeing with, or a corporate meeting with the Global Advisory Council, even if we just accepted these parts of our ethos, our distinguishing spirit, we would be differentiating ourselves in the marketplace massively. And the beauty is, I believe light attracts light, and it's starting to happen. And wonderful people are joining this enterprise from all around the world, and you guys are the cream, the center of that. The cream of the crop are here, and we're so grateful for your willingness to learn some of these principles. Thanks. The second part of this speaks to the notion that when you have a conflict that arises, ask yourself this question first: how am I part of the problem? If you start by asking that question sincerely, what happens is it immediately invites the person you're dealing with to do the same. If two people enter into a conflict asking themselves how they're part of the problem, what are the chances for resolution? It immediately says, I'm looking at myself and I'm saying, what have I done to contribute to this? And when I do that, that's an immediate invitation for you to do that. If I choose to accuse you and say, you know what, this is your fault, I'm excusing myself. They have the same derivative as a word. So that's what this book teaches. I love the concept. I wish we could go a long time on all of these, but you're all in the valley of the shadow of death. Wake up. Welcome back. Let's talk about believe, belong, become for just a minute. I'm not going to go deep on this either, but let me just say this. Do you understand that believing comes first? Do you understand that when two people believe in each other and believe in something in common, they now have a belonging? And when two people belong to each other, invariably what happens is they start to become. These are not trite corporate bromides or platitudes. This is real stuff for me. When I see someone struggling in the business, I can start with believe and say, where is the belief at risk? If someone has deep, abiding conviction in themselves, in the product, in the company, then good things can happen. Now, the beauty of this environment is I can believe in you, in some cases, more than you believe in yourself. And wouldn't you say, let's say Debbie and I are talking, and I go, Debbie, I believe in you. And she looks back at me and goes, I'm struggling right now. But wouldn't she say, I belong to Ty. I belong to this relationship because I know he believes in me. And if there's a belonging there, then there's this silent, tacit contract we sign with each other, isn't there? That we're going to help each other become. That moment of believing in someone else prefigures a belonging. And that belonging to each other, which is a deep human need, then starts to support the notion of becoming. And as I summarize this for you, just let me give you quickly what I mean by that. Number one, believe in yourself first and foremost. The single greatest wasted resource in the world is the human resource. All of the trash and garbage that we were taught when we were kids, that we went to school and got a negative grade on something, or we didn't have the same body shape as some cheerleader, or we didn't have all this trash that we grow up thinking about ourselves that creates these relative positions of, I don't know that I believe in myself. Leave it behind. Don't bring it to ASEA. Control, Alt, Delete. Reboot this thing. Come to the table and remind yourself, I can do anything I want to, and you belong here to us because we believe in you too. Second, believe in the product, the opportunity, and the industry, your company. Belonging to someone and something is a human need. When we belong to each other, something beautiful starts to happen. And it fills a major human need that we have. And then lastly, you've heard me say this 1,000 times, the outcome is not income. The outcome is become, overcome, and then income. Get it? This was a presentation that we did 2 or 3 years ago that kind of shadowed the idea that we're people with human elements. Our product is a chemical product. It comes from 4 basic chemical elements that we use to make our product: water, H2O, and sodium chloride, right? And I don't know that we think enough about that, but it comes from very basic 4 elements. We take it through a process, and it creates what is ASEA, right? The redox supplement side, as well as Renew 28. I like to think of our product as being the redox supplement as well as Renew 28, but the product is you. You are part of the product. And if chemical elements are the basic chemical building blocks of matter, then I would submit to you that human elements are the basic building blocks of what matters. People are what matter. And if we can recognize that every single person is a unique individual with marvelous unique capacities, elements about each one of you in this room, and then think of yourself as a periodic table of humanity, right? All these different unique elements coming together, you can create a pretty cool product, right? We only use 4 elements to create ASEA. I have almost 2,000 in this room, and if we put ourselves together, all the unique talents that each of us brings to the table, we will create a new product. That new product is pretty much like this periodic table, but it's people behind the table. You can start to see faces emerge, and you realize that every single person is a beautiful person that brings something unique to this organization. This was the image I used to suggest that when those elements marry up with your talents, and moments in time, wonderful things happened. I summarized it this way in this document. The power of ASEA is embodied in the collective, diverse character of our people. Everyone has gifts and talents that are unique only to them. These unique human elements are true basic building blocks of what matters in life. And when these talents and elements, listen to this, guys, when these talents and elements intersect with moments that we seize on behalf of others, the miracle of ASEA is mobilized. Does it make sense? You're all wonderful, wonderfully talented people. Okay, I have 6 children, and they're here tonight somewhere. In just a minute, I'll ask them to stand probably. And so I'm not ashamed to read you a children's book tonight. Maybe I'll put you further to sleep. This book was given to me by the widow of my very best friend, who died at age 42 just 2 years ago, hiking on a mountain to meet his son's scout troop. Had a heart attack and died. He was my very most special friend in the world. He was probably the greatest influence in my life outside of my nuclear family. And when I was asked to speak at his funeral. When I went to his home, I walked into his office, and there neatly on his desk in front of me was a journal that he had left for the time that he and I spent together. Several pages of the time that we worked and knew each other were right there. There was the Bible and his scriptures, and then there was the 3 questions children's book in a triangle. His glasses were right there on the desk. I asked his widow, Eleanor, if I could sit in his office for a while by myself, and I pulled this book out, and I read through it. And probably a month or 2 later, I was speaking at a convention, and I said, I want this to become part of our ethos as a company as well. It's an adaptation of a Leo Tolstoy short story, the great Russian author, and it's a simple 3 questions that are posed by a little boy by the name of Nikolai. The questions that Nikolai wants to have answered are, when is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? And what is the right thing to do? He asked his friends, the heron, the monkey, and the dog, and each had a separate answer. When's the best time to do things? The heron said, plan in advance. The monkey, who's about ready to get hit on the head with a coconut, says, watch and pay close attention, not having any idea he's about ready to get bonked on the head. And Pushkin, the dog, says, you need a pack to help you know. You can't just do it yourself. The next question, who's the most important one? Sonia, the heron, says, those closest to heaven. Sounds a little self-centered, right? As she flies in the sky, she's doing something not everyone can do. The monkey now has his head bonked, and he's saying, anybody that can help me with my immediate need is the most important one. My head hurts. And the dog is kind of from a pack, and so he's political and says, those who make the rules are the most important ones. Get close to the people in charge. Last question, what's the right thing to do? Bird, of course, self-centered, says, fly, do what I do. The monkey's not terribly observant, and he says, just have fun. And the dog, who's political and is a pack, he says, fighting is the right thing to do. And little Nikolai struggles with all these answers, and so he decides, I'm going to climb high into the mountain to find Leo the turtle, the old wise turtle, to see if he can help me with these questions. And he finds the turtle working on his garden by himself, poses his questions. What's the best time to do things? Who's the most important one? What's the right thing to do? And the turtle is grunting and pushing and working, and he's digging in his garden. And the little boy sees that he's doing it, and he says, you must be kind of tired. Why don't you let me help you? And the turtle gives him his shovel, thanks him, and sits down on a rock. And you know what? Nikolai is talking to the turtle, and he works the whole garden. He finishes the entire garden, and there's a storm that arises. And they hear a cry, and a panda bear has been injured by a fallen branch. He runs to rescue the panda bear, brings her back to the home of Leo the turtle, puts her in bed to nurse her wounds, and she wakes up and says, where am I, and where's my baby panda? Nikolai then realizes that a little baby had been with her, runs back out into the storm, finds the little panda, and brings it back, and lays it in his mother's arms. The turtle sees this happening and smiles to himself when he sees what the boy had done. But Nikolai continues to maintain that his questions have yet to be answered. And that's when Leo, the wise turtle, says, yesterday, if you had not stayed to help me dig my garden, you wouldn't have heard the panda's cries for help. Therefore, the most important time, your first question, was the time you spent digging the garden. The most important one was me. And the most important thing to do was to help me with my garden. Later, when you found the injured panda, the most important time was the time you spent mending her leg and saving her child. The most important ones at that moment were the panda and her baby. And the most important thing to do was to take care of them and make them safe. And the next line, he says, remember, there's only one important time, and that time is now. The most important one is always the one you are with, and the most important thing is to do good for the one who is standing at your side. For these, my dear boy, are the answers to what is most important in this life. In fact, this is why we are here. So, when is the best time to do things? Now. Tolstoy was trying to teach in this short story, which is a very different story if you read it. The only thing you have is right now. So live now. The second question, who's the most important one? The one you're with. If you're talking to someone about this product, then focus on the person. I see high school kids on dates across the table from each other, and what are they doing? They're texting somebody else. They're not even talking to each other. I sit there and think, are they texting each other? What's going on here? The answer to the question, who's the most important one? The most important one is the one that you're with. And we all blow this every day by maybe having our minds somewhere else or thinking about something more important. We need to remember when we're in front of somebody, they're the most important one. And the last question, what's the right thing to do? That's a pretty philosophical question. And the answer to that is the most important and the right thing to do is to do good for the one who is standing at your side. Now, can you imagine the feelings I had sitting in the desk of my best friend's office in his home? He has his scriptures, he has the journal of the time that we were together, and this book. To be honest, I sat and wept. I just sat and wept and thought about him. And I realized that all of us at ASEA have a unique opportunity to answer these three questions every day. It's the time is now. The person in front of you is most important. And the right thing to do is to do good for the people that stand by your side. Will you help me to live that? Can we live that together? This is a beautiful philosophy that I shared at a convention around that same time. It's an African philosophy that's called Ubuntu. And most people know of this because there's a free an open operating system on the internet that you can go out and use called Ubuntu. But it comes from the same concept, which is I am because we all are. And Desmond Tutu says this about Ubuntu. I've got two great quotes from him. You'll have to pardon me, but I want to read these. Ubuntu speaks of the very essence of being human. We say, hey, so-and-so has Ubuntu. Well, then you are generous. You are hospitable. You are friendly and caring and compassionate. You share what you have. It's to say that my humanity, listen to this beautiful phrase, my humanity is caught up and is inextricably bound up in yours. We belong, sound familiar? In a bundle of life. And we say a person is only a person through other persons. We don't exist by ourselves. Listen to the following from him. A person with Ubuntu is open and available to others. Last night when Paul Tyrer received the I Am ASEA award, I was thinking about Ubuntu. I was thinking about him being peer nominated to receive an award that was a cross-line mentoring award. What does cross-line mentoring mean? It means willing to help anybody regardless of my ego and economic benefit. It means Ubuntu. Ubuntu says that we're open and affirming of others, that we don't feel threatened that others are able and good, that we don't sit in the banquet last night and think that when someone wins a plus, there's a negative and it's a zero-sum game. That's not the truth. Ubuntu says we all understand who we are. My proper self-assurance comes from knowing that I belong to a greater whole. That whole is diminished when others are humiliated or diminished as well. or when they're tortured or oppressed or treated as if they were less than who they are. Now, what's interesting about Ubuntu is it can be found in several different cultures all through Southern Africa. But when I saw this, I'm like, this is ASEA. No one in this room, nobody is here without somebody else. Nobody. Nobody is actually even involved with this organization unless you're one of the very first ones, Vertus and a handful of others. You were all introduced to this. You could literally stand up and say, I am ASEA, because we are ASEA. We all are together. Now think about that. So remember, no one exists in isolation. No one. We're all interconnected. And what we do affects the whole world, and none of us reaches any heights without the support and help of others. I hope all of you diamonds especially, that were recognized so appropriately last night, will never forget that there is someone that will never be on this stage that helped you get there. I hope you will take time and really ponder about the people that helped you to get there. Because if you're living this, you'll never forget that it's the nameless, faceless person to me that makes me recognize your face. Now, look at this pinwheel. What do you notice, right? The last one is blank. And I want to add something else to this. And I'm not proposing that that would be the end of adding to this. I'm simply saying that this is a living, breathing set of values. It's our spirit. It's our soul. It doesn't become, I've heard one time that to truly be ours, it has to be known, it has to be owned, and it has to be energized by all. You have to choose to buy into this ethos, this distinguishing spirit. But I promise you this, if you'll do it with the right principles, it will benefit you economically. It will absolutely put you on the stage being recognized. But it needs to be done motivated by the right things. And I'd like to add something to this. I have a question for you. What if you had a product that could do the following things? It could strengthen the immune system. It could also improve the length and quality of sleep, reduce symptoms of illness. It had the ability to lower blood pressure. It was also make us more resilient and increase happiness and life satisfaction. What about this? It would encourage exercise and taking better care of our health. It would reduce anxiety and depression. Am I starting to get interesting to you? Let's keep going. What if it would boost feelings of optimism, joy, pleasure, and enthusiasm? It would make us more helpful, more altruistic, and more compassionate. It would actually promote forgiving other people. Can you imagine if you could take a product that would promote forgiveness, what we could do in the world? What about inspiring greater connection to your community? Or even a product that would make us less bothered by aches and pains? Now, I'm convinced that if I said, what is this product? You would all shout in unison, it's ASEA. Well, the truth is it's not ASEA. At least not the Redox supplement and not Renew. But it is ASEA if you realize that if we live something really important, this will be what we gain. The product is actually the product of gratitude. In fact, if you really look at what I'm saying here, 10 years ago, if you wanted to study happiness or gratitude in the science of psychology, you had to call happiness subjective well-being because nobody wanted to accept anything at a university that said, I want to study happiness. So they used terms like subjective well-being as if to say like that's better sounding than happiness. But in the last 10 years, there's been an exponential curve lifting the study of gratitude and the impact it has. And please know, I did not make these things up. These are actual proven through studies, blind crossover studies, that gratitude properly understood and expressed can do all of the things I listed there on the page. Now, let me show you what I mean by that. A book was written by a PhD out of UC Davis by the name of Robert Emmons, and he spent 15 years studying the effect of gratitude on people. He defines gratitude this way, that first, it's an affirmation of goodness, that we affirm there are good things in the world. There's gifts and benefits that we've received. The second part of gratitude is that we're figuring out where that goodness comes from, and we acknowledge and recognize that the sources of this goodness are not always inside of us, but outside of us. And to the degree that you might be a spiritual person, you can acknowledge that other people or even higher powers give us many gifts, big and small, to help us achieve the goodness in our lives. Now, how did he do this? How did he actually determine that gratitude had the ability to increase happiness and life satisfaction or make us less bothered by aches and pains? He did it with one simple test. He would ask everyone to keep a gratitude journal. And all he did was he would say, I would like for you to write down 5 things that you're grateful for every day. Now, to have a control group, what did he do? He asked them to keep a journal and write the things that bothered him. To write down the hassles and the frustrations and the less thans and the things that they didn't get. And you know what he found? That everything I listed on that prior page, by anywhere from 10, 15%, when he asked people, do you feel more pains and aches? How do you feel illness-wise? He went through social, emotional, career, all these different dynamics. And what he found was that no matter what, the person that was simply taking a few minutes a day to write as little as 5 things into a journal was happier, healthier, willing to forgive. They were kinder and more compassionate. They made more meaningful connections with people. By the way, does all of this sound meaningful and relevant to an ASEA associate? All of those outcomes are what we want. But here's what he's teaching us. And by the way, there's even an iPhone app that you can download that's called a gratitude app. And it literally leaves you 5 spots. You can just type them in there every day. Say what I'm grateful for. It might have been, I had early morning coffee at Queen City, or I splashing in the puddles on our morning walk this morning I was grateful for. What's powerful about this is that gratitude, when it's properly expressed, has an enormous effect on us. When we affirm that there are good things in life, and please understand, both this researcher and I are not suggesting there are not bad things in life. I understand there are challenges, there's adversity, there's struggles. But what he is saying is, because there are bad things, should not underscore or suggest that there are not good things. And that if you'll awaken your senses to look for good things in life, if you'll look and recognize those good things, and then go one step further to acknowledge that they didn't come from you, in that moment, you're starting to move into a place of gratitude. I appreciated hearing Dr. David Silverman last night speaking, and first thing he stood up and said, gratitude. And I thought, well, he must know what I'm about ready to talk about tomorrow. And I'm grateful for him. I'm grateful for all of you. And I want to talk a little bit more about, so what about this? Well, let me share this with you. If I had to pick the one person I've learned the most about from gratitude, it would be my sister. This is a picture of my sister Nancy's family. A little blurry, sorry about that, but it's a wonderful picture. And I guess what I have to tell you is this picture for me is a living miracle. It's a miracle. Nancy's second to last little boy there at the bottom with his arms folded is named Weston. And 10 years ago, I was on a trip with Chuck Funky in Palm Springs. And I got a phone call from my dad, and I heard in my father's voice something I had never heard before in my life. It was the most clear and acute sense of fear that I had ever heard in anyone's voice. And he told me that my sister, while giving birth to Weston, had had a very, very serious problem. That Weston had gone several minutes without oxygen, and that Nancy was in a very grave situation. Now, those of you that are medical professionals, my sister slipped into what's called DIC, where she basically can no longer coagulate blood. So she was bleeding to death. And I remember very distinctly, in fact, because I was so overwhelmed with emotion, I quickly left my meetings, I ran to the airport, grabbed the first flight on any airline I could find. And I was so overwhelmed on my flight that I pulled up my computer and started journaling all my feelings. I remember the opening line of my journal entry that day was, my sister Nancy is in really bad shape, and I'm not sure what's going to happen here. I'm so amazed that that picture even exists. Because if I remember right, Weston didn't have oxygen. I can't even look at you. He didn't have oxygen for so probably somewhere to 15 to 20 minutes. And so can you imagine? And when this is the only picture I could find of that moment. Look at my face. I knew this was not a game. And my beloved brothers and I were surrounding Nancy's bed. And I watched my parents pull the curtain outside of her room, and my mom and dad hugged in the shadows outside that curtain. Nancy's kidneys failed her because in DIC, the lack of blood then starts to just kind of decide which organs are going to have to go. And what's amazing about what happened here is this picture. Weston is here. Is he here tonight? Weston's here. And Nancy's here. Even more miraculous is that Parker's here in her arms, that she actually was able to have another child, which was largely suggested to her, don't go there. And she went there. And little Parker is an absolute joy in our whole family's life. Now, this alone might suggest gratitude, right? But this is the story. In my sister's home is a wall. And on that wall are several different clocks. And the first time I saw it, I didn't really understand it. But it occurred to me that not far after this time, my sister started to signal to her family and remind herself every day to be grateful for every moment. That time was a gift, that life was a gift. And so if you walk down the stairs in my sister's home, you're going to see what time it is a lot. And that's not the purpose, right? You won't meet my sister, if you're a family member or otherwise, without being greeted with a joyful and grateful hug and kiss. She will smile and light up a room just like my mom. And she is a grateful person. So here's the question. How could we at ASEA be grateful for every moment? How could we show more gratitude? I'm really pleased to announce tonight that in connection with this becoming part of our ethos, I want to celebrate the creation of a new foundation. We're referring to this as the ASEA Advancing Life Foundation. Chuck gave away $100 to the person that could name our new corporate descriptor being cellular health. But the long-standing descriptor of our company, Kurt Richards, I think, was the one that came up with it, was advancing life. And we wanted that to live on. We didn't want to lose that as we shifted to cellular health. And so we've created the Advancing Life Foundation to commemorate that notion that that's what we're about. Now let me talk to you a little bit about this. This foundation has a focus of children and families. And our goal is to invest in the future in kids, as well as families, and to improve overall health and wellness of children and families. And our overall focus and how the foundation will work is we plan to partner with respected charities that enable global engagement. What that means is, by engagement, I mean us. I mean, if you're not willing to roll your sleeves up and get your hands in this meatloaf, you're probably not going to get what we're trying to do here. This is partly giving funds, but this is also us working together to engage in doing something good. And we're aiming to do that with regional partnerships as well. So in Europe, we'll find existing organizations that are doing good things there. We'll find organizations in countries where we establish ourselves. We'll work with our field leaders to identify these partnerships so that we can do good in the world. And we'll focus on sustainable efforts. We want to do things that will go a long ways. I'm looking at my friend Marcel, who told me he wanted to do something like this. And we love you, Marcel, and are grateful for you. It's been a long time in our plans. Now, I'm excited to tell you that the first of these partners that we've chosen to work with is an organization called Choice Humanitarian. And let me tell you a little bit about Choice. Their primary purpose and focus and mission is to end extreme poverty in the world. And they partner with motivated villages in third world settings, and they create resources and tools that will enable the villages to change their own lives, to become more sustainable. And they do that by sponsoring expeditions to implement the planned improvements. I took this picture in the highlands of Guatemala in what's called the Cloud Forest about 7 or 8 years ago. I have a love for Guatemala. I've served an LDS mission there for 2 years, and I love these people with all my soul. I took this picture of a family in a small village where I had gone to do a service expedition with Choice Humanitarian. And I've brought some video of that. This was Chimachiat, Guatemala, a beautiful village in what they call the Cloud Forest. And we would get together. We came to this place and set up camp just outside their one-room Catholic church. We threw tents down, and we overtook the place. The villagers would huddle with us every morning, and we would talk about our plans for our activity for the day. We would huddle, and then we'd go to work right side by side with them. Our project that week was to add a wall to make a one-room school into a two-room school. And not only that, but to trench out an entirely new facility next to the school that they had. And what's neat about this experience is we used their construction methods, not ours. We didn't go and say, you're doing it wrong. We did exactly the way that they do it. We spent a whole week getting to know these people. We trenched this entire school out and worked side by side with them. We brought in the materials and supplies were provided by our organization, and we made huge efforts to work with them to build this school and to create this wall. And it took us actually 2 trips down there to finish the entire school. We set up a dental facility, brought down a dentist with us. These are actual images from some of my video archives. I pulled teeth, that's a scary thing. We had, and my favorite part is we went into the villagers' homes. This was a home, cook over an open fire. We shucked corn with them. You can see the chickens running around at our feet. And I took my hand at making tortillas with one of the villagers there, which did not turn out very well. She was kind enough to let me try to do it with her. And she laughed and laughed at me because it would just stick to my hands. The beautiful thing about this village were the kids, the most beautiful children you can possibly imagine. We spent time playing with them, and they would just laugh with joy at bubbles being blown. They were the most pure-hearted little ones. Look at the smiles on their faces. They were just joyful. At the end of this week, with sad hearts, we gathered, and they pulled all the chairs, and the families from this village came and set up. They danced for us. They played marimba music for us. The kids dressed up in costumes. The boys were girls, and the girls were boys, and pulled us out of the crowd and made us dance with them. I'm the crazy red-hatted guy that starts doing some weird jig right there. And we just had a marvelous time with them. They were so grateful for the work that we were doing with their village and with Choice Humanitarian. We took a huge group picture at the end, right there in the village on our last day. And you know, we went to help them do something and change their world, and this little group of people that I hosted down there, it changed us. We were the ones that were changed. I'm pleased to announce that ASEA will do a similar service expedition as our inaugural effort with the Advancing Life Foundation. That service expedition will be in Acambay, Mexico, in the week of January 11th of 2016. We want our associates to have those same experiences of showing gratitude by giving back. Now, how people participate in this will still be determined. It's very likely it will be a buy-in for the first one for people that are interested in going. And we'll go for a full week with Choice Humanitarian to do that. I want you to understand that we'll be doing the exact same activities that we did there. We might be working on a school, we might be helping with water systems, or even a health clinic, and in many cases have an opportunity to teach micro-enterprise training, so how they can start businesses and small things that will help their economy. What do you think? Good idea? Now for this next section, I'd like to invite Bob Freeze and Chuck Funky to come out. I'm going to turn the time over to Bob, who's largely responsible for arranging this relationship with Choice Humanitarian, but also setting up the foundation. And we'd like to make another announcement tonight, and I'm going to turn it over to you to do so. Thanks.
Thanks, Taylor. I can't tell you guys how honored I am to partner with our founders, with our executives, and all of you to establish the ASEA Advancing Life Foundation. It's exciting. I hope you're excited. I think it's particularly appropriate at this Velocity Convention where we honor Vertus's contribution to our company to establish this foundation, representative of his heart and his generosity through the years at ASEA. And we're so grateful to you, Vertus, and for your willingness to help us establish this. Thank you. Tyler mentioned the expedition that we're going to do in 9 months in Mexico. We've got a lot of work to put that together. And recently we've been saying we wanted to do something tangible, immediate, that would help excite and give back to this effort initially. And if you're aware, this past Saturday, there was a major earthquake in Nepal, devastating that country, a country that has so little and devastated what little that they have. And so we brainstormed earlier this week, what could we do? Just so happens that Choice Humanitarian has major initiatives there and is already on the ground providing relief and supplies and so forth. And so in consultation with our founders and executives, I'm pleased to announce today that we're making a $10,000 donation to the efforts in Nepal to Choice. We've invited Choice CEO, Leah Barker. She's with us today, and we're going to invite her out, welcome her, and we're going to present our contribution to her. Leah. I'm going to turn the microphone over for Leah to make a few comments at this time.
Namaste.
Namaste.
As you guys know, the severe earthquake hit, the epicenter hit right in the middle of the villages where we work in Lamjung. It's been absolutely devastating. The pictures are coming out daily with new updates. I, like you and the rest of the world, have been in a bit of a sad fog this past week and woke up this morning with this renewed sense of hope and started thinking about the things that I really love about the Nepali people. And I thought about two things. They're so resilient and they're so hardworking. And I thought, what better combination to have in a people during this tragic time? Resilience and hard work. And I personally am not going to be surprised if Nepal, as one of the poorest countries in the world, develops a model that other countries, developing countries, can use in a time of tragedy like this because of that resilience and because of that hard work. And I'm so honored and proud to accept this check today on behalf of the Nepali people, because I know that they will put it to good use, and we at Choice Humanitarian will also make sure that every dollar is well spent. And I'm excited because I'm looking forward to this being just the beginning partnership between ASEA and Choice Humanitarian. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bob? So, yeah, please, Leah, come here. You know what? This is exactly what I was going to talk about next. Thank you very much. I would like to issue a challenge right now, and you're all up for a challenge. Most people like challenges. You're on a tape delay. Most people like challenges. Would it be okay if I issued you a challenge? Good, welcome back. Here's the challenge. If every person in this room did exactly what, I didn't see who did that, thank you very much. Who was it? Cindy, where are you? The lights are so bright. Cindy Lou. If every person in this room did exactly what Cindy Lou is, we'll match that check tonight. So here's the deal. You can go to Choice Humanitarian. If you'll throw the slides back up for us, guys. You can go to choicehumanitarian.org/donate. We'll have ushers at the doors.
We have ushers back here that have donation envelopes. If you have money, you can drop it in a box at a table out here, or again, go online and you can donate online. So
even the diamonds alone, by the way, here's a new most diamonds, could double this thing with some help. So let's do something good tonight as well, and let's signal that the Advancing Life Foundation and gratitude are part of our ethos, okay? Thanks, Leah. Thank you very much. Thank you. We're excited. Thanks, guys. So let me finalize the summary, and with your blessing, add gratitude to our core ethos as a company. Be grateful for every moment. Life is a gift. Gratitude expressed makes us healthy, happy, and represents the highest form of generosity. Write down 5 things that you're grateful for every day. Will you do it? Okay, good. I want your permission to have gratitude take its proper place in this circle of our ethos. Do I have it? Now, here's a question. If culture is a set of beliefs and values and behaviors, if these are the spirit and the soul of the company, then what's our job, really? Our job is to teach these core values to others. When I hear Alan Noble mention the concept of a corporation is a body, I go, yeah, he's getting it. This is cool. I'm transferring a concept to someone. So what I would like to suggest to you is this. Are we doing enough as a company to teach these values to one another and to new people that join? Yes or no? I don't think we are. And what I would like to say today is that we're going to start taking time in our peak performance program, and most notably this year at our Envision conference, and we are going to start teaching these values. In fact, I'm pleased to announce that at this year's North American and European Envision conferences, we are going to add a full day of Ethos Academy training. This training will basically take this pinwheel, this entire wheel of values, and for one full day, we're going to talk to each other. We're going to have discussions about it. We're going to talk about how it applies to our lives. I'm going to ask you as leaders that come to the Envision conference to then turn and teach it to others. Culture is a set of behaviors, beliefs, and characteristics that are transmitted from one generation to another. Is that relevant in network marketing? Are there multiple generations and family trees? You guys have a responsibility then to take this information and not just feel good listening to me in the valley of the shadow of death, but actually take this stuff into your heart and ask yourself, do I live these principles? Am I managing motives? Am I challenging myself? Am I actually treating other people as people or objects? Am I believing, belonging, and becoming? Do I see people as talented human elements that combine to make products together? Am I careful about the 3 questions, treating the person that's in front of me right now as someone I need to do good for and serve? Am I living Ubuntu? And am I grateful every day for the blessings and things that have been given to me by others, or if you are a believing person in the divine from some higher power? And I would like to challenge all of us to take this seriously. This is not just a one-time-a-year deal. This is what we should be trying to do. Now, a word of caution. I am a hopeless idealist. I have no problem, nor do I apologize for standing on a stage and saying, I want to live this way. And if I fail at that, it does not give you a license or me to quit trying. None of us are going to be perfect at all of these things at any given time. But certainly none of us ever should take occasion to call into question someone's integrity because they're trying and didn't make it. We should forgive each other, treat each other as people, and try our best again. Get up and try again. So a quick what if. What if we as a group of people made a real serious commitment and oath to each other that we were going to try to do this? And I know somebody's out there saying, well, I appreciate the Sunday school stuff, but let's talk about money, right? Let's talk about making money. I promise you this, we will be an unstoppable force in the world with the products that we have and the people that we have if we will try to live this way. I have recruited wonderful people from different companies, and I will promise you this, they do not come to this organization simply because of the product or the opportunity. They come because of stuff like this. They want to know who we are. They want to know what we stand for. They want to know that we're reaching for ideals that are bigger than us and that we're not afraid to do it in a world that's letting this stuff go gray, if not black. So let's do that. So I'd like to close my remarks, if I could, with my own version of gratitude today. I'm extremely grateful for the people that you saw come up on this stage. I am extremely grateful for my family, for my lovely, loyal, and committed wife, Allison, who's here, who I adore. And my 6 rascals, where are they? Where are you guys? Oh, there you are, over there. My 6 little ones over there waving at me. And most especially today, I'm grateful for my mom and dad. On my wall in my home, we have a series of beautifully framed pictures. They're all black and white. And in the center, we have a saying that matters to us that says, honor thy father and thy mother. The pictures around that saying in the center are pictures of our parents when they were married. Pictures of my dad when he was a young store manager in a grocery store. They're pictures of my grandpa who served in the Second World War, and my grandmother, my dad's mom, who was a concert pianist who played in a band. And I have pictures of her band. What was the name of the band? The girl band? Something girls during the Second World War. I should have brought the picture. Here on this wall, I have all these images that remind me every day as I walk past it to honor my parents. And first off, I'm going to say this, just to bring them down a little bit, neither one is perfect. And none of us are, right? But I certainly can't think of a better set of parents to have had in my circumstance. So knowing that I would be closing this meeting, and knowing that my dad's remarkable career supported completely and totally by my mother's remarkable life, I wondered, how do I properly thank them? What do I do to properly express my appreciation? And early one morning, I awoke very early, and I went and started to write down what has now become some lyrics to a song. And I want to foreshadow it for you a little bit so when you hear it, you know what was going through my heart and mind. The concept was not singular to my dad, although the song's title is entitled One Life. It's not just my dad, because in every step of the way, I was thinking of the one life of my mom in the same breath as I was thinking about the one life of my dad. And for that matter, I was thinking of the one life of my 2 older brothers who have been gems to me, and my beloved sister. I was thinking about the one life of Chuck Funky or Kurt Richards or Justin Wilson. I was thinking about the one life of so many people. And I came back to my dad and said, that's what it should be about. It should be about the power of a singular life and what influence and impact it can have. Now, the problem is my mother was a concert pianist, is a music snob. He loves really good music. And so if I was going to venture off to do this, having been a songwriter and a musician for part of my life, I thought this is going to have to be really good if he's going to listen to it. If he's going to put it in his car by himself and drive down the street, it's going to need to be really good. And I started to think about the kind of music my dad listens to. And I'm happy to tell you that what you're about to hear is a song, a beautiful collaboration that I co-wrote with a gentleman who was identified by David Foster as a young musician in his teens who toured with David Foster and opened for Josh Groban. His name is William Joseph. I partnered with a dear friend of mine by the name of Russ Dixon, who's a wonderful producer out of Nashville. I'm pleased to tell you the vocalist is also a David Foster artist out of Toronto by the name of Mark Masry, who has a glorious voice. By the way, some people think if you write a song or help write a song, you absolutely sing the song. I'm not singing the song. But the lyrics are mine. Much of the music direction is mine. The strings on this song were produced, and the session was produced in the studio by a very locally well-known person by the name of Kurt Bester. And this is a world-class production for a world-class dad and mom. And with your permission, I'd like to share it with you. Can I share it? One life.
One life can make a difference. One life can change the world. One heart living on purpose can be a beacon of light that for others will burn. And when they see that you lights a fire inside and makes it clear to see that it takes one life, living every moment, if only just one life can believe in something more. And if one can unite with another, they'll shine brighter than before. And it begins with just one life. One life reaching higher can look back along the way and see others they've inspired. The lives that we touch make us who we are today. As you leave your fears behind, put your trust in something greater, you will find. And it takes one life, living every moment, if only just one life can believe in something more. And if one can unite with another, they'll shine brighter than before. Days go by, and with every hour
I'd like to invite my parents to come up to the stage for just a minute.
Ty.
I love your mom.
Wonderful tribute.
Come here, Mom. Thanks. Hey, buddy. Hey, James. Okay, Grandpa, come over here for just a minute. Come on over here. James, you can come over here too. Come here, Parker. Where's Weston, by the way? Weston? That's Weston right here in his sweater. Say hi to everybody. So I've got, obviously, Mom, flowers for you. And this is a special, special gift. You guys all know what this is, don't you? This is a yearbook from every person at this convention and from all the people that have worked with you. It has a timeline on the front. And I'm pleased to, on behalf of all of you, to present this to you as a memento of this convention. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Very, very much. We'll see you at the party tonight at 8 o'clock. Thank you for letting us share a little bit of our family with you. We love you guys, and we'll see you shortly for the hats off. Good night.